The world is in dire straits. The coronavirus challenge is urgent. What it requires is a united response. But guess what the champions of international cooperation are doing? Nothing. I'm talking about the United Nations. The very name of this body right now sounds like an oxymoron. We're dealing with a pandemic. The United Nations enjoys unique powers, including the power to convene. If it wants, it can bring together investors or businesses at a conference to deal with an emerging issue. It can bring together heads of state. Yet, neither the UN Security Council nor the UN General Assembly has formally discussed the Wuhan coronavirus. Why? Because they follow protocol, even in the face of death, it seems. Let me explain this. The Security Council, the United Nations Security Council agenda is decided by the chair. It's a rotating presidency, and the chair for this month, the month of March, is China. China has very conveniently decided that there is no need for a discussion on the coronavirus crisis, a virus that China exported to the world. If China wanted, it could have used procedural advantage and pitched for all-out discussions on the coronavirus crisis. But why would it? China is busy telling the world that all is well and how other countries are messing up. The Chinese envoy to the United Nations, Zhang Jun, was asked this question specifically. Will Beijing get the Security Council to discuss the pandemic? Allow me to quote what he said in response. Council members generally feel that there is no reason to panic at the moment and plan to monitor the situation. COVID-19 is currently not on the organ's agenda. These were his words. Not on the agenda. But why? Here's what Mr. Zhang Jun said in defense. And listen to this very carefully. The virus, he said, falls under the umbrella of global public health and security, rather than the Council's geopolitical scope. Geopolitical scope? He talks about the mandate and scope. These structures and procedures are outdated. We've said it in the past. But here's something the Chinese leader should know. He probably does know, but I'll be happy to remind him. No such mandate, no such scope problems emerged the last time the world was dealing with a health emergency. I'm talking about the Ebola outbreak in 2014. It was not a geopolitical issue. It was a public health crisis. And the very same United Nations Security Council was quick to adopt a resolution over the Ebola outbreak. The UNSC called the outbreak, and I'm quoting again, an unprecedented crisis which constituted a threat to international peace and security. Let's also compare Ebola and the coronavirus. In 2 years, the total number of Ebola cases was a little more than 28,000. Deaths, more than 11,000. The coronavirus has close to 500,000 cases, close to 20,000 deaths, but it does not fall under the geopolitical scope of the United Nations Security Council. Why? Because the virus comes from China. And China is doing all it can to exploit the position it enjoys at the UNSC. A Security Council session would damage Beijing's carefully crafted narrative of aiding the global response. Uncomfortable questions would be asked. Here's what China would rather have the UNSC do: shield terrorists. They've done it in the past. For 5 years, China has ignored international efforts to clamp down on cross-border terror at the UNSC. China has blocked the designation of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist at least 4 times. China is shielding state-sponsored terror at the Security Council and preaching others on what the body ought to discuss. China wanted to discuss the lockdown in Kashmir. Now the whole world is under lockdown, and China says the UNSC does not have the mandate. If this does not expose the United Nations, I'm not sure what will. It needs to rewrite the rule book. China cannot be allowed to exploit its position as a permanent member. We need political commitments from governments across the world in the form of a resolution. UNSC resolutions carry the force of international law. A single resolution can lead to coordinated efforts. The United Nations needs to stop mirroring and feeding Chinese propaganda.